Welcome to Fashion Cats and Cocktails, the podcast where Dismantle Magazine editors Elise and Sara chat about the latest fashion news, their cats, and what they're drinking. We put out a new episode every month, along with supplemental content, like the corresponding reading guide, that is exclusive for our patrons. After this episode, head to dismantlemag.com. There you'll find more of our fun, accessible articles about critical fashion and cultural studies written by seasoned scholars and emerging voices. And click support us to join us on Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Now let's get on with some fashion cats and cocktails. Hey Sarah!
Hi Elise!
What's going on?
Just hanging out with my cat, drinking some tea, reading about fashion.
Where's your cat?
She is, we have a little place set up for her on what most people would probably think was forbidden, but our cats hang out on the table quite a bit because it's the best sun patch in the house and they like being close to us. So we used to have a no cats on the table rule, but I think it turned out we just had a cat that didn't go on the table, so.
Yeah, you can either do a no cat on the table rule or you can just buy some bleach.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. Ready to get started?
Yeah. We were talking this week about Forever 21, right? And their bankruptcy.
Yep, and we put together this fun reading guide, which is found on our website, dismantlemag.com. What would you say is in the reading guide, Sarah?
I think we put together a collection of articles. I think they kind of cover three general areas. The first is specifically about Forever 21 and what happened and how people are interpreting their bankruptcy and what it means for the business. And the second set of articles are more about the kind of shifting consumer retail landscape more broadly and how larger economic structures are shaping the way that we consume and how that relates to things like gender and race and class. And then there's a set of articles that are more about kind of historical context and labor issues. John Oliver's segment on Amazon warehouses, and a really great essay by Elizabeth Cohn from, when is it? When did she write it? Is it from the 80s? I think it's later than that. I think the malls were starting to decline, but hadn't disappeared yet. But it's called From Town Center to Shopping Center, the Reconfiguration of Community Marketplaces in Post-War America. And I think it's my favorite overview of how the shopping mall came into existence in the US and became such a major force for a while.
Yeah. It's like a really fun piece of gender and labor and history of consumer culture,
race
and space
class.
and suburbia. Yeah.
It's got everything.
Yes, it's one of those, which I guess is why it's so amazing. Yeah, I love how you just kind of broke down articles because it's such a great way to begin a discussion on a topic where you kind of introduce the topic itself, how people are talking about it, but also just what it is, it really helped me understand what was going on a little bit more with the bankruptcy. But then like the second two categories are, like when we're teaching classes, this idea of offering these frameworks for thinking about and asking questions about a topic, sort of frameworks for thinking about gender and fashion and consumption.
Let's talk about those first articles, because I'll be honest, like I'm really interested in the subject of Forever 21 filing for bankruptcy, more for what it means kind of symbolically. I don't actually care at all about Forever 21.
Come on.
I know a lot of people do. I was more interested in how people were talking about it and how people were thinking about it than the actual fact of Forever 21 going away. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, Alda had this amazing like short sleeve gray sweater that it's still like just as nice as the day I bought it. I don't know why. It's just you randomly get that
weird,
that really amazing quality.
I think I was with you actually. I remember buying something at Target in like 2009 or something, and it was lined and it had like this incredible like piping on the in the liner.
I remember.
I was like actually horrified at how well made it because it was like $9 for a dress. and somebody had put like, or a collection of people had put so much labor into it. It was shocking. I don't think the last couple times I've been into a Forever, I've actually never bought anything at Forever 21. I'll just be honest. But I've been in and I've looked at it, and it looks like it's made out of Kleenex, like everything in it. So I think those days of that kind of weird mixture of really high and low quality, just randomly as a result of outsourcing, I kind of think that's over. I think it's universally pretty garbagey at this point.
Yeah. So basically we're not really sad, I guess, to sum it up. Not that
I'm
we
sad
go
about-
shopping very much either.
I'm sad about the workers.
Yeah. So what was it about I guess, you said let's kind of thinking about how people were about it. So do you want to like sum up maybe some of the positions or the arguments? I guess because like the question is sort of like, why did they go bankrupt or file for bankruptcy?
What we included here, and there were plenty of other articles, but I kind of liked these three. I'm generally a fan of Amanda Mull, who writes for The Atlantic, and she wrote an article thinking about how it's called Forever 21, Underestimated Young Women. And it's thinking basically about the shifting consumer habits of like teenage girls who are their target audience, and how their shopping habits are changing, but they're also not interested in this like just gluttonous excess consumption that characterized I think what she thinks of as or writes about as the millennial model, the Y2K years. So that's her general point. And then I thought the Connie Wang article for Refinery 29, growing up in the Forever 21 generation, it was a little bit more kind of personal and about what Forever 21 meant for her as a kind of teenager, working class, immigrant background, that kind of thing, and how having access to that kind of consumption basically was meaningful in that particular time in her life, and how it was sort of an aspirational place.
Yeah, I know. I really loved just the idea of suddenly you've got this teenage job, you're earning some small wages and you have a little bit of this income, and it's about setting yourself out in the world. You figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And and then whatever it is, getting dressed up to go out to dinner, or this idea of like the pleasure of shopping.
Yeah. I liked when she talked about buying things at Forever 21 that you'd actually never wear because you were a teenager and you didn't go out to nightclubs or bars or whatever. Like there's never any reason to wear like a glittery tube top or something, but you'd buy it because it was super cheap and it was a sort of fantasy of who you were going to be in a couple of years. Yeah. I can almost relate to kind of a little bit.
That's always a consideration when I get rid of clothes, because the costume closet is really important, like in New Orleans. And everyone has these ridiculous boxes of costumes. The totally different thought that we'll probably edit out, but this idea of kind of like buying things because they are fun, but you don't have a place to wear them.
Yeah.
I think is probably one of the reasons people like to go to New Orleans. You can just wear whatever.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that's
the costume closet. I used to have a box that I called the H&M mistakes, because there was some kind of spell that would come over me when I was in H&M, and I'd think like, I definitely want this hot pink low cut weirdly business shirt that's like I can't wear to teach in because it's like very like tight and low cut. It's not like something that I would wear casually either because it's too like office lady, or like a crocheted tank top that was like really pretty, but I'm not gonna wear a crochet. Like, where am I gonna wear a crocheted tank top?
I don't know. I have this really pretty like beaded, I don't know what the name of the style is, but it's kind of lacy or crochet, but it's just all beads. And my aunt gave it to me years ago, and I just can't get rid of it. It's like a little bit too tight. It doesn't really look as good on as it looks off. But it's just such a pretty like item hanging in the closet.
Yeah. So Forever 21, there is something about it as providing a fantasy of who you could possibly be. And it's also, I think, something that some of these articles, more the Connie Wang one, I think, started to get at that I think is important is this idea that there's not other ways to get those things. So it's not really like if you're not making a lot of money and you don't have a lot of autonomy and you don't have like a lot of places that you can go, and then you're trying to kind of figure out who you want to be, right, that it is, it's not the greatest option, but it might be the only one you have at some point. So
we started to get what the assumptions, the sort of interpretive leaps that both authors are making about changing consumer power. So I think both wanted to kind of explore that and then think about how powerful that is as an argument, I guess. Or
yeah, well, I think I wrote this in my little reflections that I've always found it very frustrating that teenage girls, you're judged so much on appearances and presentation and encouraged to express yourself through consumption, and then also you are the stereotype and the kind of shorthand for the vacuous, excessive consumer who doesn't think about anything except right, for like the thrill of getting new stuff at the mall. And I've always found that really frustrating. So I appreciate that both of these authors are talking about how, like, scare quotes, kids today are thinking about shopping differently and they're more sophisticated and they're not interested in just going out and doing like hauls or whatever. But I don't know. I felt like and I actually wrote something similar in my article on the 2000s revival about how vintage is much more popular and a lot of teenagers are picking up fast fashion and they're moving more towards used clothes and vintage clothes and like Depop and stuff like that. Do you find, and maybe you can help me with this, I still find that there's something weirdly condescending about being like, oh, these kids are so much more sophisticated than we were. Is that weird? Yeah. Is that wrong? I don't know.
No, I think it's I think it still kind of paints them in this really one-dimensional, overly simplistic way where it's sort of like, I don't know, look how cute and quaint they are with their politics, like, yeah, and it like also puts all this responsibility on them. I think that's the thing that gets me more, because it's like they have so little power at this point in shaping the world that everyone else is fucked up for them. Like, yeah. And then it's suddenly like, oh, look at you with your consumer choices, which is why I think I really like the third piece, the one that was originally in like a publication, Philadelphia.
Yes. I think it was the local NPR station.
Okay. The idea behind it was thinking about the actual economics, where it's sort of like the store is just financial move that's almost like, not like cheating, but they're sort of saying like, oh, let's restructure, let's regroup, and respond to a changing culture of consumers, but not necessarily in this idea that consumers are unilaterally banding together to consume in a more environmentally friendly way. It's more that there's just different ways that shopping works.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think one of the points that comes up in that article is that they expanded absurdly fast and they just became massive, and there's a Forever 21 every 6 blocks or something right now. So, which is totally unsustainable. And I do think part of the fashion district, it's a new mall, or it's an old mall being revitalized in Philadelphia, which is interesting to think about in terms of the Elizabeth Cohen article too, about the changing ways that the spaces of shopping shifting and what it means to be in the downtown core versus the suburbs now, and how they're trying to revitalize this kind of central mall that all of these central malls have been having trouble. So they're going more upscale and they're doing a lot more experience stuff. Seems to be the new trend is that, again, it's always about like kids these days or whatever. They don't want to buy stuff. They want experiences. They want Instagrammable experiences, and so there's a
Right.
lot of that happening. And I think, I don't know, I am not sure that we're actually getting better.
Yeah. I, I, I think I saw if it's the same project. So we went to Philadelphia like a little over a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that I love about going there is how it is this really thriving urban city that's like very unusual in the US these days. So it seems like if the revitalization of some sort of downtown shopping mall is going to work, it's going to work there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. We should get maybe we'll have to bring in some of our Philadelphia friends.
Yeah. Jen.
Yes.
Kathy. Yeah. This is not quite the same thing, but just thinking about malls, there's this mall here, and I think I've told you about it, in Merida, that's kind of on the outskirts of the city, which is, in the last several years, there have been these new developments in the northern part of the city. That's where wealthier people live, and it's kind of like, the new suburbs. But this mall is insane. It's like 3 stories high, and there's a lake with a automatic water skiing ride that you can I know it's hard to, it's like something you would see in Dubai or something. And it's probably the same developers that built
that
it.
Makes all of America look so rinky dink.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And there's some word for it that they use, like hashtag mall fun or something. But of course, it's some sort of English thing, and because it's cool and hip. Anyway, some of the things, like you can actually put your kid into a crane and they become a life-size toy crane, like those toy cranes.
Oh yeah, I've seen videos of that where you
try
and get as much candy or something.
Right. And then there's the ones with those little like stuffed animal scooters that Magali was talking about.
Oh, yeah, we have the Lloyd Center.
Yeah. But so this idea of the experience, I guess what's kind of interesting, I was curious, that was my biggest question when I read that in the article about putting this new experience of shopping and like revitalizing Forever 21 in downtown Philadelphia. So it's this question of like, well, how different are the experiences? It's kind of been part of the original model for mall shopping.
That's what I think is interesting. Is that the very beginning of mall history, going back to Elizabeth Cohn, is that it was trying to be a commercial center that replaced the town center. And they tried to have all of these like sort of community experiences built into the space. And the Lloyd Center, the mall that I live very close to, actually has these pictures, this campaign about reimagining community. And it's all these sort of like beautiful middle-class Black families like sipping espresso and going ice skating and stuff. And it's just interesting because I think part of what the suburban mall initially did was recreate this kind of town center experience, but without anything that would make middle-class white people uncomfortable. So it was a way of like spatially excluding people of color, poor people, anyone that you would, so you could have this like, instead of if you were like going into a downtown of a city, you'd have to interact with all of these different people that might make middle-class white people uncomfortable. But so I'm curious if this new kind of revitalization effort is going to be able to not do that.
Right.
If it can be, because when you rely on a commercial space to be your town hub, then the interests of the business get to define. It's not a public, it's a market, right? It's like demographic. Yeah. So.
And I think that it's really telling that when you think about what's really happening in downtowns, and even in downtown Philadelphia, in the space that we're talking about where this mall is, it's part of gentrification, right? It's like this reemergence of a new kind of exclusive space that like in certain 1950s US with the development of suburbia, or with the development of this new suburban space in Merida, the old one and the new one like Philly are designed to exclude.
Yeah, it's interesting. And like the Lloyd Center here, guarantee it's sitting on top of Black neighborhoods. Like that's what got wiped out in order to build the mall and the freeway and all that stuff. But now Portland is the whitest city in America. The Lloyd Center is the most diverse place you'll see in Portland. So it's interesting that it's half empty, like there's only one anchor store left, which is Macy's, makes me nervous. But I think if anything could do that in Portland, it would be the Lloyd Center. I don't know. I'm rooting for the Lloyd Center. I hope they figure it out. And I hope this fashion district, I do worry about that kind of reproducing that suburban exclusion in the town center. Want to get cheerier and talk on distribution centers?
I just watched The Last Week Tonight last week, and it came out 3 months ago or something.
Yeah.
And the whole thing happened with another worker dying from being overworked. It sure would be cool if all the workers would just put like a note in all the dumb boxes of toothpaste.
Yeah, well, that's what there was a phase of garment workers doing that with Zara, putting the notes in Zara clothes. Yeah, maybe Amazon workers. They're so surveilled, though. I don't know. But yeah, we need to make them visible. I think they need to be, the more they're hidden in warehouses. Apparently, there's a commercial that features like all these sort of like queer and trans workers. I just saw a thing about, I went to find the commercial talking about like how great an employer Amazon is, that they have benefits and all this stuff. At the same time, there's other news stories about having to work around dead bodies, things like that.
Right. The only time I've ever seen an Amazon warehouse was Tacoma. We were at a KOA where we were camped next to these Western white people with beards who had a Confederate flag in front of their camp. So that happened, and we were like,
sounds like Tacoma.
Yeah. So anyway, we camped across the street from a Amazon distribution center, and it's one of those weird, like, new construction warehouse buildings where like there's like the appearance of windows, and it really looked different from what I expected. I don't know.
Huh. I actually haven't seen one. I thought about applying to one when I was looking for summer jobs just out of curiosity, but I didn't.
How low can we go? I don't know. What do they pay? $15 an hour?
$15 an hour. I'd get my steps, wear my Fitbit. They should market it that's how they should market it. The same way that retail did all their union busting and making it from good jobs to bad jobs by selling itself to housewives and teenagers. They could try selling themselves to, I don't know if housewives exist anymore, but to working parents who need extra money and can't fit in the gym or afford going to a gym. They could call it a workout that you get paid for. See, Amazon, we're helping you.
I know, we're really good at this. I don't know, we haven't been that successful in selling anything else, but maybe we can figure out how to market for Amazon.
So, all right, what do we think about the future of fast fashion?
So I think that probably it's not great. It's not that a bright future to come. But I think so we talked about this idea of that all this responsibility on changing the nature of late capitalism, putting the responsibility on fashion consumers, basically. That's just for the most part on consumers, but specifically fast fashion as a symbol of like, but we can really make the change if we affect the change at the individual level. But I think sadly we can't really rely on changing choices because the retailers, the producers, capitalism itself will continue to adapt because that's what capitalism does. So
yeah, I was just thinking this from what you were saying. I've been saying this for years that consumer choices aren't the way to change fast fashion. I've been telling my students this for years, and that all that does is reproduce the same model, like that, because you're still seeing yourself as your most important power as a consumer, and we have other ways of using power besides as a consumer. Some of us are citizens, and if you're a citizen, you can do things like vote, you can do things like have policy changes, and or push for policy changes. You can try and listen to what workers are asking for. If they're asking for unions, then you can try and support their organizing. But one of the things, what I was just thinking when you were saying that, sorry, I got a little passionate, but is that the capitalists will always think of something worse. Like
they do.
They've gotten as bad as they can get, and you're like, oh, fast fashion is so disgusting. It's exploitative on every level. It screws workers, it screws the environment, it screws consumers. If we just got rid of fast fashion, we could fix everything. But they thought of something worse, which is like same day delivery of your socks, which nobody needs. And
No.
so we can't keep thinking of ourselves as primarily consumers. That's all.
Consumer citizens, yeah. Exactly. Or consumer activists. Yeah, that's just not, that alone is not going to do it. I'm trying to think of what, like if Amazon, if everyone in the US just to take that population, we're like, okay, I don't need my toothpaste delivered on Sunday, and if everyone was like, we're not going to do it, and then it made some kind of grand consumer movement, which isn't going to happen anyway. I'm just trying to think of what Amazon would do.
I don't know. We're not as diabolical as they are, so. But they figured out. I mean, yeah. Isn't Amazon, is that the one that's Jeff Bezos? Is that him?
Mm-hmm.
And he's multi-billionaire. Nothing, like, he'll figure out another way to maintain all that money. So
yeah.
But we're all workers, and that's what we can do, is think about it in terms of working rather than in terms of shopping. And how our labor can connect to their labor.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe everybody, so to come back to costuming, maybe that would be like a really good initiative to have fun and experience that same kind of playful identity work outside of just like shopping,
Like when I was a kid, I always wanted to do those old time photo booth things where you dressed up like the Old West. I never did because we never had enough money, or at least that's what my parents said. But yeah, we need more reasons to play dress up.
Yeah, and then we don't need to necessarily go out. I guess it's also just having a different activity, but just not having to go out and buy the things that you can imagine yourself playing with, which is kind of the double movement of that.
Yeah,
that kind of shopping.
Right. Why do we need to own it?
That's like my favorite in Parks and Recreation, when what's his name, Aziz Ansari's character creates the store called like something swag.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, they have that. I mean, that exists.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's part of one of the things that Amanda Mull talks about in her article too. That those kind of like Rent the Runway and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
But I like the idea of having like a costume closet that you can just go play in. I think the world needs to be more tactile too. Spend too much time online.
Yeah.
Okay, one more point, which is that I'm thinking about why it is that we want to own stuff, and how there are these things that are happening, like Rent the Runway, and that are more about like temporary kind of leasing clothes. Forever 21 was kind of that too. It was just that the clothes went straight to the landfill, right? So it's not like, except for your magic gray sweater, most of the things people bought there, you don't expect to own forever. So there's really no reason to buy it, right?
Yeah.
Turn it into a costume closet, put it back, and just not keep making millions and millions of tons of it every couple months. There, we fixed it.
It does make me sad to see, I guess my point that I want to make is about American consumerism, and I know other people consume in other countries outside of the US consume a lot, but when I was home over the summer, I was like a little bit blown away by how everyone around me just never stops buying things. It's just kind of it makes me feel awful, but it's also so hard because we were like, oh, let's go shopping, and we went to Academy Sports to get some water shoes because we were going to the beach, and I always hate when we have water shoes and cut your feet on oyster shells and stuff. And And then we ended up, and we got like these like we just, it's like so hard to not buy things. I think there's a horrible disease that does need to be addressed, and it's not people's fault. There's something that needs to be addressed, how everyone is being driven.
Yeah, I talk about in that Payless article too, is that we're constantly shopping, and there's no leisure shopping anymore. I don't feel like, because I feel like I always have to be buying. Like, it's like this. Oh God, I need, like, this is worn out. Now I have to do this, and then all the brick and mortar stuff is closing, so you kind of have to buy more stuff online because there's fewer physical options, and then it's all like just this constant labor. I remember even like we would go in the mid 2000s and we would go to Target, and it was we didn't do that very often. Like, it was something that we would do like once every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd spend and suddenly like 3 hours would go by and we'd have like the best time. But it was because we'd made this like special trip to the,
it was like a Sunday afternoon family activity.
Now it's constant.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of what you were saying, what happens at the Lloyd Center too. It's like people don't go there to shop, they go there to hang out. And at this crazy La Isla Mall with the, automated water skiing, we went and we just kept marveling at how no one really had shopping bags. Like, we went on a Sunday afternoon, super big like family day, and everybody was at the food court. Like, everybody just went to have lunch and like maybe go see a movie and then just wander around and like watch your kid buck on a horse, like a horse.
So it's like a weird amusement park.
Yeah. Which, I guess that's what Target was for us too on those fun Sunday trips.
That's true. Get our little drink. Well, I thought we fixed it, but I think we just broke it again. So.
That's okay. Although I think what we concluded is that the more things change, the more things stay the same, because essentially, I think there's still shopping for leisure, but maybe there's more consumption involved in it. But I think what we've determined is that there's like more and more shopping as labor, like not things like Amazon, the constant decaying of our closet have created more of a need to go shopping, and that kind of takes some of the pleasure out of it. But then capitalism's kind of figured out how to insert the pleasure in other ways, like simultaneous gratification. Suddenly your milk is at your door. You ordered it 5 minutes ago.
Now go to the mall and go ice skating and ride a horse.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to, I guess, I don't know if we reconciled it, but I'm trying to think about those two things. And maybe that's a good place to leave as an open conclusion, an open question.
Yeah.
Sort of like, how does the pleasure of capitalism operate when consumption has become so much a simultaneous activity of leisure and labor?
Yeah, it's just that you're always doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's necessary in a new way.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to next very important segment, which is cats. I talked a little bit about Miss Wiggles and her disgusting habits on my table, and her adorably disgusting habit that we facilitated. Tell us about your cat.
Well, my cat is hiding under the bed, which she's been doing for a couple days now, except for at night. So our cat that lives in our house right now we share it with our friend. So her name is Gata. It's really original. And she just ran into our friend's house one day when she was like a baby and never left. So one day our friends were, hey, do you want Gata? She would come hang out with y'all for a while. So she did that for like 6 weeks over the spring, and then now we're back and she's back and I'm super happy. But yeah, so she's still hiding under the bed because it's kind of like a good, her happy spot during the day. But I think she's still a little bit timid right now, except for at night when Justin calls her the sunset lady, because she likes to come out as soon as the sun sets. Starts to go crazy. So
they're nocturnal creatures. I don't know why we live with them. And Gata is a really cute, she looks kittenish, right? She's pretty young, and she is what my steady fella Tim calls a spaghetti tabby, which means that she's all the different tabby colors mixed together.
Yeah, I thought it was an official characterization or an official category, but
nope, we made that up.
And I thought it was because it kind of has like cute little orangish reddish patches in her tabby stripes.
Like spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, delicious. My favorite food.
I know, it's perfect because spaghetti is your favorite food.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's an introduction to our cats, and maybe we'll keep bringing in more fun cat tales as we continue. Also, I just want to point out that the fashion cats and cocktails has a double meaning because Sarah and I are in the jazz sense of being fashion cats, and that's why.
That's why there's no commas in the name.
Exactly.
Fashion cats and cocktails? Is it fashion cats and cocktails? Nobody knows. All of it.
Yeah, it's a real grammar lesson.
Let's talk about our drinks. The cocktails didn't work out today because it's cold and early where I am, at least.
Yeah.
And Elise is about to go to the gym.
I also have a little bit of everybody wants to hear this, a little stomach virus. Like when someone says alcohol, it kind of makes me want to puke.
So that's fair.
Yeah, so I'm drinking herbal tea.
Me too.
What's in you, Sarah?
It's just mint tea with honey, nothing fancy, but it's delicious. Out of a beautiful mug with a cat on it.
It's such a great mug. I was laughing at Sarah because when we started this discussion, she was all bundled up in multiple sweatshirts and has a scarf on and is drinking hot tea. And I'm here sweating in my tank top, and it's just so perfect. And I'm drinking iced tea.
So Mr. Heatmiser and Mrs. Is it Snow?
Snowmonger. Anyway, my tea is a wild spaghetti combination of some delicious chamomile tea that my friend Ruthie gave me for my birthday, and jamaica, which is hibiscus, the tea out of it, and then lots of ginger, which we're all hoping is going to solve our stomach problem.
Nice. It sounds delicious.
Except for all of my ice is melted because we talked for a long time about it.
We like to talk. That's why we're doing this. Do we have a sign off?
How about this is Elise and Sara from Dismantle Magazine, and you've been with us for Fashion Cats and Cocktails. Thanks for joining us. And if you want more fashion fun, head to Dismantle Mag.
And to hear more, join us on Patreon. Sign up. We're making everything up as we go along, and it'll keep getting better as we figure out what we're doing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But no matter what, we're going to have fun doing it. And as we said yesterday, maybe someday we'll make money off of all of this work that we basically have been training for and practicing doing for like 20 years. Or we'll just go work at Amazon. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
And thanks everybody for listening, and stay tuned for more Fashion Cats and Cocktails. This is Elise, editor and now podcast producer at Dismantle Magazine. Thanks for listening. I want to thank all of our patrons, our cats, our family, and our friends for supporting us in this endeavor. At Dismantle Magazine, we produce critical content in fashion and cultural studies, and we work to do it in a supportive environment. If you want to support us, head to dismantlemag.com, read our articles and other content. You can join our Patreon. You get extra treats and extra features with this podcast and other things as well in our Patreon community. You can also subscribe to our podcast, share it, join us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.